Okay, so let's talk a little bit about getting started with keywords. This is going to be part one of several webinars that we'll talk about using the Google AdWords keyword tool. So what you'll do to get started here, let me zoom this in a little bit. So you've got that. You'll go to adwords.google.com, and I don't think you can see that real well. I don't know how well that'll come up on the video, but adwords.google.com is the address. Okay, and that's Google's AdWords system. So we come over here. So you'll be signed in to your Gmail account, and then you click on this sign in, and it will take you to sign in there. And if you're saved, if your password is saved, you'll be able to just jump right in and save it. Now on this screen here, you'll have this link that you need to look for. Skip the guided setup. Don't go down here and click continue, or it'll force you to pay. And because this is Google's paid advertising platform, so it'll force you to create ads and campaigns and stuff. But if you skip the guided setup, then we can bypass all that and not have to go into that until we want to later. Okay. So if you're doing this on your own account, or it hasn't been set up for you, or you're using a different Gmail account and you're going to go to adwords.google.com and set this up, this is how you begin. The next step is you've got to set your time zone. You cannot change this later, so make sure that you set the time zone right, and then save and continue. And that'll take us on into Google AdWords. Once we get into the AdWords system, we're going to go up here to the top and click Tools. And under Tools, go to Keyword Planner. And that's the tool that we want. And again, wait for it to load. Once we get it up here, what we're looking for is under this Find New Keywords and Get Search Volume Data. We click on this Search for Keywords using a phrase, website, or category. And we're just going to enter phrases here. So these are seed phrases to tell Google, hey, I'm looking for some data related to these phrases. So if we're selling bikes, for example, then we might put in here mountain bikes, full suspension mountain bikes, kids bikes, beach cruiser bikes, road bikes, racing bikes. We just put in a few different phrases there. And so that tells Google, hey, find me phrases related to these. Okay, we could throw BMX bikes in there. And then we come down to this Get Ideas and click Get Ideas. And that brings us into the list of ideas. Now this is where Google has changed a little bit. They used to give us volume and a chart there showing the history of searches for the year. Now they only give average monthly searches. And so that's what we have available to us now is these ranges, basically. Not even an average, in a number, but just a range. But we download that, go in here and click Download, and then check this box, Save to Google Drive, and that will save it to your Drive account through your Gmail. So we download, and then Open File. It'll open it up as an online spreadsheet for us here. And generally what I would suggest, I need to pull some of this up into view there a little better. There we go. So you can see the tab down here at the bottom. What I would suggest is first let's make some brief modifications. So I'm going to click on one over here and just bold that. And then I'm going to go to View, Freeze, one row. And that will freeze that header row. So all of that will stay as I scroll everything else, okay? the next thing we want to do is come in and remove any data that we don't want. So this add group column we don't need, so we right click on A and delete the whole column. The keyword we want, the currency we don't need, so we right click and delete currency. The average monthly searches we want, but the rest of these we don't. So drag across all of those, right click and delete columns C through J and get rid of all those. Okay. Next is if we come up in between the A and B, we can just double click that and open that up to the widest keyword. And then to get started with some of the additional data we need to gather, I'm going to put a little formula in here to do all in title research, which is some competition research. So put in the word in this, and this needs to be started in the cell right next to the cell with data. If you have an empty cell, if there's something like a keyword here that doesn't have any data, then we want to delete that whole row, because if there's an empty cell here, it'll cause problems later. I'll show you. In fact, let me just give you an example. We'll insert one there. So we're going to do this little formula here, all in title, all one word, ALLINTITLE, colon, quote, and then in this field we do equals concatenate, and then click on this little pop-up here and it starts the formula, and it wants us to add with a comma in between each, which cells to combine. So we start with C1 because we want that first, and then a comma, A1, or A2 I guess it is, and then a comma, and then the final one will be this E over here, and we close it with our parentheses and then press enter, and that creates the formula. And then we'll spread that out so it's just as wide, and then we need to come over here and we put end quote. And so now we've got our formula complete, so it takes all of that, combines it into the search that we need to put into Google. Okay? Enter into Google. And this is just to get started with some competition research. If we take that phrase and go over to Google, and this must be in Google. You can't do this in Yahoo search or Bing or any other special search. It needs to be just in the basic Google search to do this. And that number right there is what we're looking for. That gives us a number of pages on the internet using that keyword in their meta title, which is an indicator that they are trying to rank for that keyword. Okay? And so we're going to gather that number, 434,000. We'll put it right over here, 434,000. And so that's our competition number. That's our all-in title competition number. Now, we want to make that easy to search all of these. So if we highlight that and double-click that little square, it'll push that all the way down. But look at that, we ran into an empty cell, so it says, oh, that's as far as I'm going. So that's why we don't want any empty cells right next to the data. If we come over here and delete that row so that we have data, and then do that again, then it'll push that all the way down to the bottom of the document for us. Okay. So there we have the formula we need to gather the information easily and make sure we're not making an error. If you type this in every time, then you've got that possibility of human error, and if anything is typed in wrong, the numbers aren't going to be correct. So generally what I would say is do maybe a dozen of them, 10, 6 to 10 or a dozen of them, and then send it in to your coach to have it verified, and verify that you're doing things correctly to make sure that we test that and make sure it is correct. So, and then once you know that yes, indeed, you're doing it all correct, then you can go ahead and continue and do it on the rest. Now, the next big thing you need to do on this list is anything that is broad or general or something that isn't relevant to your niche. We want to get rid of that column. So BMX is way too broad. It's not specific to an individual product, so we're just going to delete that row. And you need to right-click on the number and then choose delete the entire row. Bike, same thing. Too broad, right-click, delete. The whole row goes away. So we don't want to delete just the word, because then all of these will move up and they're no longer matching their data, right? And so that's the next big thing, and what I would want you to work on first is go through the list, eliminate anything that's not relevant, and do the keyword, the all entitled search, and put the number over here for those that are relevant. Then after that, we'll take it to the next step where you're actually going to be going through those keywords, ranking them to, as you know, to determine which are most valuable for your site and where you'll use them. Oh, one last thing I forgot is down here on this tab, if you click on that in Google Sheets, you can come up to duplicate, and that way you can keep an original. So that way you've got all your original data. If you decide you want to come back and use some of those keywords later, you've got it. But here we can delete anything that we're fairly sure today that we don't want to use. Okay. Having a backup's always a good idea with data. So the rest of that, this is step one. The rest of it will come in other, we'll talk about later. But right now, let's start with just the basics here.